Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time, welcome, happy to have you here. So, it's been 2 weeks since I successfully completed my PhD Viva. Yay! So, when I was preparing for my Viva, especially with this, COVID situation and having to defend my thesis remotely, I wasn't really sure how to prepare. I read a lot of materials online, watched a lot of, videos around key preparation, strategies and to adopt. And to be honest, I didn't really find anything very useful because most of the materials or questions I saw were kind of very generic. And people's research and work are different, so it might not really be applicable in that sense. But however, somehow myself and my supervisors, we figured out a very effective and efficient way towards preparing for my Viva, which I found very useful. And I thought it would be also useful for people in my position who are preparing for their Viva post COVID situation and even after, because I think it's universal in the sense. So it's for that reason that I thought doing this video would be helpful, because I found it useful, and I promised on my channel I will only share tips and suggestions that I have found useful and other people have could contest or could confirm to the fact of its usefulness. So that's why today my topic is around how to effectively prepare for your PhD Viva. So, welcome. So, I will start with the pre. I have three key major steps to achieving it. First being know your work. I know it's a cliche to say know your work when it's actually the work you've been, working on for the past 3 years plus, which was my case. So there's a tendency to overlook some things or just assume, oh yeah, it's my work, I know my work in-house. But it's really important to go through your work again, read it word for word, cover for cover, and understand your work look at your work or read through your work like a novice, so to say, because when you read it like a novice, you're able to identify likely areas to, focus on likely areas that questions could come from. You know your work, you know things that can be very contentious, things that might need justification in the sense of why did you do this, why didn't you do this. So when you're reading, that should be your mindset, that you're trying to pick out things that needs further explanation, things that needs further understanding, things that needs further expansion around it. So one of the key advice my supervisor gave me was, one, read your work cover for cover, and for each chapter develop questions around things that you think your examiner would ask. So what I did was I read through my thesis, and for each chapter I developed between 5 to 9 likely questions. And so I did that progressively from chapters 1 to chapter 7. So read through word for word, cover for cover. And having to do that was helpful in the sense that before I submitted my work finally, I was kind of lazy to really go through it cover for cover, word for word, to, spot all of the grammatical errors and other errors with regards to spelling and things. So that helped in the sense for you to pick out all of those errors that you may have, omitted before submission. So having to do that and reacquainting yourself with your work and reading through your work like a novice would help you develop likely questions that you think examiners might ask for the purposes of understanding your work in a broader sense and giving scope to your work in that regard. So it is important to reacquaint yourself with your work, to read it cover for cover, and for each chapter develop likely questions that will come up in the Viva. Secondly, practice, practice, practice. Having identified or developed likely questions that might come up for each of those chapters that you generate. Excuse me. Welcome back. Sorry about that. Having your sister, interrupt you or trying to make a video is inevitably my case. So I'm hoping I can rush through this before her call comes in again. So where was I? Yes, practice, practice, practice. I mean, you cannot overemphasize the need for practicing in the mirror or to someone or on your own. The questions you have developed, you need to build confidence in your responses, confidence in your communication skills, both the confidence in your ability to answer difficult questions, challenging questions, complex questions, build strategy on how to answer questions. What I found the most useful was figuring out how to structure the questions, because it's easy for someone to ask you a question and you just give a clear-cut answer, but to prove that you have depth of understanding around your work and to make the people understand your work in a progressive manner, it's structure in answering questions is important. So if you're asked a question, you want to give structure. So you want to say something like you're asked a question around what were the key contributions to your work. So you might answer something like, my work did identify several contributions, particularly in two broad areas, practical and theoretical. For theoretical contributions, my work is adding to this, and for practical contribution, my work is adding to this. So structure is very key to answering questions, and it's important for you to practice that, because it's very easy to fumble when you're asked a question. You have so much in your head, you know what you say, but how to say it is always a challenge. So practicing is key for you to be able to build structure around how you want to respond to your examiners and put forward the answers to your questions in a concise manner, as well as drive home the point. So when you give structure, it shows that you have depth in understanding around your work, and you're able to, effectively push it through for someone to understand it in a meaningful manner, so to say. Oftentimes, it is possible to have an examiner that might not necessarily be a pro in your field, but what you need to know, your mindset going into your Viva should be that you are the professional here. You are the pro in your work. It is your work. So you have sort of like the authority around your work. So you should speak confidently. You should you're not convincing them in the sort, you're showing them because you have depth in understanding of your work. So that should be able to come across. Passion should be able to come across in the way you express yourself, in the way you put forward what you're saying. So that's why practice is key. So I know it's difficult. For me, it was challenging because it's a remote defense. So I worried that not seeing someone physically I might miss out on someone actually seeing the whole, non-verbal expressions with the way I'm delivering my work, might not necessarily see the passion that I have for my work. So that was a challenge for me initially, but it didn't really play out in that way, because I found it quite helpful in the sense that when you're able to express yourself verbally and non-verbally, with regards to your body language, the way you're speaking, the way your hands are moving, it shows passion. It shows, that you know what you're saying, that you know what your work was about. So you should be able to practice that. I'm not saying put your hand through the camera, but you know what I'm talking about when you're trying to speak to someone about something you're passionate about, it comes through in the way you're talking, in the way your non-verbal expressions, your hands, your body movement. Don't be excessive around it, but just try to be professional in the way you're delivering your response, and your passion will come through easily. So that's why practice is key. And secondly, practice is key so you can be able to time yourself as well. You don't want to speak for 10 minutes on just one question. So you want to break it down. Even though you might have a lot to say, it's important that you compress it into key points and drop the key ideas around so they get a brief understanding. If they need more, they will ask for it. So you don't want to bombard them with too much. Just give them key points in a concise structure, and if they want more, they will ask for more. So that was all about practice. So you need to practice all of the questions you have developed and make sure you have good grounds on it and are very confident in and comfortable, answering those questions, and also delivering it in structure, and also showing your passion while doing that. And then the last being, I found a mock Viva very useful. Yeah, especially because I was doing a remote, Viva. I wasn't sure what to expect. I didn't know what the modalities would be like. I didn't know how I was expected to act, how things were going to, I just didn't get a sense of how things were going to be. So having a mock Viva with my supervisors really helped, in the sense that after it, I felt a lot more confident, and I was actually looking forward to the Viva, as opposed to before. I was scared. My heart was literally pounding. If I were to hold it, I could hear it sounding so loudly because I was scared, to tell you the truth. I know it is my work. I know, this has been my baby for the past 3 years plus, so I have a good grip of my work, but not understanding how things will play out has a tendency to play on your mind and just, rip out that confidence out of you. So having to do a practice session with my supervisor prior to my Viva was the most beneficial thing I could have ever asked for. So what my supervisors basically did, I have 3 supervisors, so what they did was they worked amongst themselves and kind of, developed, likely questions that could come up. And so what they did, we had a 1-hour session, very intense session, where they threw questions and I answered. And at the end of the day, for each of those questions, what they do is they'll tell you, okay, you did really well. How about you structure this? How about you do this? So it kind of prepares you on how to deal with answering questions remotely, and how to structure the work and see how you're doing with regards to, the structure of your response, your confidence, and how you're delivering the message, and if your passion is coming through. So it was helpful in that sense, so that on the day, I was very, confident. I was very comfortable. I wasn't scared anymore. At some point I forgot I was in my Viva. It felt more like a conversation, because I'm like, okay, I can do this. I'm getting a hang of this. It's new, but because I had practiced prior to the time remotely with my supervisors, that kind of dispersed every form of jitters, every form of nervousness. I kind of felt like, yes, I've done this before, so this is like the second round on. So that was really helpful. So I advise that even if you're not comfortable doing it with your supervisors, do it with friends and family. Just experience having people throw questions at you, and you answering it in a concise and structured manner, and get their feedback, so that you can develop and build on it when you're doing on the day. So those 3 key things were useful for me. Knowing my work by reading through it cover for cover, developing key questions for each chapter, practicing, all of the questions I had developed, building structure to it, and a mock interview with my supervisors to kind of build my confidence and my ability to, tackle answering questions remotely. So those 3 approaches to preparation really helped, and I found it very useful, and I did successfully complete my Viva with very few minor corrections to deal with, which could be attended within a week or two, but that's the least of my problem right now. So, one thing I wanted to also add is that for remote Viva defense, for me, I know a couple of my friends and colleagues had, different experiences. Some didn't enjoy the whole remote thing, found it very uncomfortable and found it way too long. But for me, I think it just has to do with the examiners you have. Some examiners have experience, with the kind of setting we found ourselves remotely. So they had more experience in handling the situation, in building structure to the way the Viva was set up, and in the way of asking the questions. For me, my examiners, basically, why mine worked was the questions they asked was around how I prepared. So they were asking questions per chapter. And remember, I had prepared questions per chapter. So that really helped in the sense that I had already built my mind around things that could come up, likely questions that could come up, which was I was fortunate, thank God, to, have questions around the things I had prepared for. So oftentimes, sadly, you might not be lucky to have experienced examiners that have experienced, the remote, Viva setting before. So it might be a difficult, thing for them to, get acquainted to. But what you should know is that your examiners are not there to fail you. They are there to help you pass. So just remember, it is your work, and you are the professional of your work. So go into the Viva with that mindset, the mindset that you are the one advancing their know-how, advancing their knowledge, because you have more knowledge around your topic than they do. And secondly, be open to criticism. The criticism is not to mark you down in any way. It's to, improve the work, to make it better. So be very accepting of, suggestions and feedback around improving the work, because at the end of the day, you want to deliver good quality research work, and that's why they are there. They are not there to fail you. I know oftentimes it might not come off in that way when they are asking you, too many questions that you found really stressful, but at the end of the day, they are there to help you pass. So do not take it, badly. Just be very accepting and appreciative of feedbacks and criticisms you're offered, and take it on the chin and thank them for it. But on the whole, I wish you all the best. I hope you find my, strategies very useful, and I would love to hear feedbacks and people who adopt it at some point in their work. For now, thank you for listening, and all the best. Stay safe, and please remember to click the subscribe button below. See you next time. Bye bye.